Hello, and welcome to So You Think You Can Rule Persia, the podcast where we rate and review all the kings of Persia from Diocles to Yazdegerd III. I'm Sariel, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Umberto, my pronouns are he, him. So, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 83, Hormizd IV. We were not terribly impressed with the previous Hormizds, but hey, this one's coming right after Khosrow, who's coming right after Kavad, so maybe he's gonna be a third in line of amazing kings. What are your feelings, Sariel? Do you think we've won the lottery this time, more glory, or do you think, oh no, everything's on fire now, or do you think,
I am not optimistic.
Okay.
We will see, but I am not optimistic. So prove me wrong, you know?
We'll try. We'll see how this goes. We'll see how it develops compared to Khosrow himself. And is there anything you remember especially from Khosrow before I jump into the official recap?
Oh, he did so many things, like, he reorganized the entire government, like, bureaucracy, made many changes to the empire itself, and caused some trouble for the Romans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool guy.
Yeah.
We gave him a high score. Yeah.
Yeah. Was third place overall, which, good position to be in.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry I can't be more specific. My brain tends to have trouble recalling information.
Yes. So I'll give you a quick recap of Khosrow I, the 2 episodes of Khosrow I, and then we can jump right into his son Hormizd and see how he does things. So first of all, Khosrow basically picked up the empire after Kavad. He eliminated the Mazdakite threat, so made the empire more religiously homogeneous, at least in the Zoroastrian part. He then fought several wars. He defeated the Hephthalites with the help of the Turks. He conquered Yemen. He fought the Romans back and forth for several times. He died sort of leaving one war behind that was still with the Romans, but we were winning, so, good, I guess. Could be worse. And then internally, he built Khosrow's better Antioch by just taking it from someone else. He essentially improved the management of the empire, agriculture, civil service, the army. He tried to basically reform everything he could. And then at the end, he will be remembered as a model ruler for it. So that's pretty cool. And so then he died in the end, leaving the throne to Hormizd. We're unsure if it was fully his choice, if it was his first choice, or if it was like Khosrow's second choice, but the nobles insisted, so it was like, yeah, okay, fine, I guess. But we'll find out if he was a good choice or not. So, let's start. First of all, we have conflicting information about the conditions of Hormizd's birth, because we're definitely sure he was the son of Khosrow, but the mother is unclear.
I see.
Because one option, which is most popular among Eastern historians, is that his mother was a Turkic princess that Khosrow had married as part of a deal to destroy the Hephthalites. If you remember, that was that story with Khosrow where all the princesses were dressed up nice and fancy, and there was one that was dressed the worst of all of them, and Khosrow's ambassador chose her because he knew that she was the actual real princess.
Yep.
So, there we go. This might be the mother of Hormizd. That's an option. Which would also mean that Hormizd was born in around 560 and had royal blood on both his parents' sides, and was probably chosen as successor due to his excellent political relations. This would also make him a relative to the Chinese emperor, which, cool, I guess, fair enough. However, the disadvantage of this idea is that would make him 19 at the age of his coming to the throne.
Right.
So that would be a bit young compared to what he actually seems to be doing. He might just be very old feeling for his age, but it's a bit unusual.
Mm-hmm.
The other alternative is instead that some historians mention Khosrow sending his son against the Hephthalites during the war against the Turks. And so that means that Hormizd should have been born around 540, about 20 years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And that also fits well with the dates of Hormizd's successor, who was also definitely an adult by 590, which would be a bit weird if he had been born in 560. So either he had his son at the age of 15 and he counted as an adult, and then his own son technically counted as an adult when he was 15, or he was born earlier. That's sort of the numbers we're dealing with. And a proposed solution to this discrepancy is that Hormizd wasn't really the son of a Turkic princess, but of a steppe princess nonetheless. So his mother was a princess of the Khazars, who are a nomadic people living north of the Caucasus, and are somewhat related to the Turks, but not exactly the same people, so maybe the historians got confused and said, oh well, he is the son of the more impressive nomads, not these smaller ones that live on the border.
Yeah.
Who knows? But in any case, be that as it may, Hormizd was chosen by Khosrow both due to the condition of his birth and also having been known as a roughly worthy prince. You know, Khosrow himself felt that he was worthy of succeeding. Maybe if not his first choice, definitely a close second.
Mm-hmm.
So in the end, when Khosrow died in 579, Hormizd became king of kings and was crowned on the 7th of March. One source, a Roman source, John of Ephesus, tells us that Hormizd killed or blinded all of his brothers except for one, who Khosrow had given supplies to flee to the Romans. But this is just a single source, it's a Roman source, and it's not really corroborated by any others. It's also later discovered by the Romans that this guy who went to their court claiming to be a prince running away from the murder of his family was just an imposter. So it could just be that this imposter gave this story for what happened at the Persian court, and it's actually just not real. He was just trying to leverage the Romans for this gain.
I see.
Okay, so you weren't very optimistic about what Hormizd was going to do once he's on the throne, so let's see how he actually acted. Well, the nobles and the clergy think he's absolutely terrible.
Yay.
So, good start, I guess. Because in the stories we get about Hormizd, which are probably passed down by nobles and clergy, he was disrespectful to the nobles and executed many of them. Al-Tabari tells us he even executed 13,600 nobles, which frankly I'm surprised there would be that many nobles in the empire at all, but, you know, maybe he did, who knows.
Mm-hmm.
And instead for the clergy, when the clergy asked Hormizd to persecute the Christians, he said that he didn't want to persecute other religions, and he had many of the priests who suggested this killed. It also looks like he tried to be a bit like his father, trying to please the people by siding with them over the nobles. But the nobles tell us that this didn't make the people better off, and it just made them more angry against Hormizd.
Mm-hmm.
He also reduce the pay of the army by 10%, which never makes you any friends.
Yep, no, that's, you know.
Poor choices at the start of a reign.
Bold.
Yeah. We're also told that he favored the infantry over the cavalry, which seems to be a sign of him favoring the commoners over the nobility.
I see.
So overall, the nobles do not care for this man. So, what do historians think? What do modern historians believe about his reign? Well, they tend to generally see him in a better light. If you read through the lines of what the nobles are telling you, it looks like he was a just and tolerant man trying to ensure that his people were better off, and he wasn't afraid to limit the influence of the powerful people, even with executions.
Yeah, so chill, nobles.
Yeah, and that's basically what Khosrow did, except he just executed the right people. Like, I mean, Khosrow supposedly executed 80,000 Mazdakites.
Yeah.
And now the nobles are complaining because Hormizd is killing some nobles because they're in the way. Like, I mean, you know, he is trying to do the job his father did.
Yeah.
He clearly has a less good PR department because it's not working out as well for him. But, you know, if you're looking at, like, the bare things he's doing, that's, you know, holding up. Also, according to Ferdowsi, he seems to have executed those nobles that had escaped being affected by Khosrow's reforms because they were in his inner circle and had grown privileged. So basically, Khosrow had done reforms for the empire, but he needed some nobles on his side, so he just allowed them to keep their privileges. And basically now the Hormizd's in charge, he's saying, oh wait, my father left privileges to all these nobles, I'll just remove them so we can just make sure all the reforms stick properly.
Let me get rid of that real quick.
Yeah.
Let me fix that.
Other historians even say that he was exceedingly just, so even more than his father, so he was just like trying to apply the law as it was meant to be applied to the nobles, and that just made him furious.
Yeah, and it turns out that, corruption is useful and people don't want to actually,
And there's also the possibility that he's being maligned for his nomadic ancestry, because he is not, fully Persian like a lot of these people. He is partially foreign.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Al-Tabari tells us that he was, and I quote, clever and wicked, and was similar in his character to the Turks from which he has his origin on his mother's side.
That is such bullshit.
Yes.
like
so.
Truly, yeah. That's so ridiculous.
So, but the nobles who based their rights on the fact that they are descended from the right people, they're the most likely people to be horribly racist to someone.
Yep. No, that tracks. Like, I am not surprised,
As we also mentioned before, when he was asked to persecute the Christians, Tabari reports that he said, just like the royal throne can't stand on its two front feet without the back too, so our government won't be able to survive and remain secure if we have the Christians and adherents of other faiths rebel against us. Cease thus to attack the Christians, but strive to do good work so that the Christians and adherents of other faiths may praise you and be attracted by your religion.
That's,
Which is basically, if you want them to convert, then just, make it worth it. Just show that you're better.
I was gonna say that's very, logical and well put out of him, but what I actually wanted to say is that's very based. Because I guess the internet has destroyed me.
Fair enough. We've both had long days. It's fair enough. The words aren't wording.
But you get what I mean.
Yes.
Okay, so
exactly.
There we go.
And it looks like the Christians were very grateful to Hormizd that they actually sent him information on Roman troop movements because they thought, oh, you're lovely. You're not trying to persecute us. You're actually helping us. Sure, we'll tell you what the Romans are doing. Have fun. Do whatever.
Yay. Turns out if you treat people nicely, they actually want to help you. If you don't prosecute them.
Yeah. So overall, it looks like Hormizd is trying to follow in his father's footsteps, but is maybe not as talented and is getting more pushback than his father did. But he's trying to follow in his footsteps, in his traditions.
Yeah, that's cool.
But unfortunately for Hormizd, he couldn't really destroy all the noble families because he needed their support. So his purges are questionably effective because they anger the nobles while he's trying to cut them down at last. He's trying to stop the nobility from being influential, but they're not going to go down without a fight if you're just trying to remove everything from them. So this will have effects in the future.
Yep.
I briefly mentioned this in the last episode, but this is going to have some serious effects on the legitimacy of the Sassanid dynasty.
Oh.
Because the reasons the nobles never put one of their own on the throne is that it was sort of agreed that the Sassanids were just going to keep everything as it always had been.
Yeah.
But now if Hormizd is upending everything, and Khosrow before him and Kavad before him, then why
they
do
have
we need
no
this
incentive
dynasty?
anymore. Yeah.
We might as well put one of our own on the throne and just win out of this situation and not just lose all our lands and all our power.
Yeah. Heck.
Yeah.
Oopsie.
So serious was this threat that there was a prophecy, supposedly written by Khosrow himself, that 12 years into the reign of Hormizd, the apocalypse would come and he would be blamed for his injustice.
Huh?
So it's the end time, Serial. We're getting there. Also, the fact that we're getting close to the end of the millennium of the era that they're using is also making a lot of people on edge.
Oh boy.
So we'll find out if that ever comes to anything.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so we were still at war with the Romans. We need to sort of solve that. What are we doing? Well, when Khosrow died, a peace treaty was being formulated, with the main sticking point being the Romans wanting the fortress of Dara back. Dara is this extremely valuable fortress on the Syrian border between the two empires. On the Sassanid side, we have Nisibis. On the Roman side, we have Dara. And Khosrow had occupied Dara in the last war, but the Romans wanted it back as part of the peace, because if we get to keep it, then we can invade Syria whenever we feel like it. So the Romans want to avoid that. They want to make sure their lines of fortifications are strong and safe.
Yeah.
But of course, Hormizd is just thinking, well, I have the city. If you're so good, come and take it back.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Yeah. So he's decided that, he's also starting his reign. He doesn't want to start by just giving up an important conquest of his father. He wants to look good at the beginning of his reign and make sure everything works out. So he made demands for the Romans to pay tribute so that they could be seen as subjects. Always a good PR move. And that since Dara was an inheritance from his father, he wasn't going to give it back because his father gave it to him.
Yeah.
It's a family heirloom. I'll keep it. And for this ambition, let's say, a Roman author called Theophylact Simocata, which we'll have a lot of information about in the next couple episodes, he says that Hormizd was, and I quote, a violent man, a most insatiate lover of gain, who gave no place to justice. He rejoiced in deceit and wallowed in falsehood, clinging to hostilities rather than peace.
Interesting how that differs,
Yes. Which sort of matches what the nobles are saying about him, but I guess Hormizd doesn't have many friends. He really should get some friends of his to write the histories, because it's not publicly going well.
Well.
And the Romans didn't help the situation by harboring an imposter who claimed to be a son of Khosrow and was acting as a pretender to the Iranian throne. So they're saying, oh, well, you don't want peace? Well, then you're not legitimate king. We have the legitimate king, and we're going to make him do what we want. We're going to even make him Christian. So there.
Yeah. Whoops.
So, harsh times.
Yeah, for real.
So, war it is. And the Romans send a first army to invade Kurdistan and reach all the way to Media, sacking the countryside as they go, which is not lovely.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, a second army led by the general Maurice is heading for Ctesiphon to take the capital and end the war. We haven't had a Roman army in Ctesiphon since Julian failed catastrophically a couple hundred years ago. This is a serious threat. So how does Hormizd respond to this? Well, he decides that he doesn't want to directly attack this army heading towards Ctesiphon, because that sounds risky. You don't want to lose all your army just in front of your capital. You want to not put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, because then what do you do?
Exactly.
Like, you got there and then you head back because you can't fight anymore.
So what Hormizd does is he sends an army into Roman Mesopotamia to cut off Maurice's supply line. And that works well enough, because the army starts starving, they don't have supplies to move to Ctesiphon, so they're forced to retreat back. At the same time, another Sassanid army managed to defeat the first enemies that were passing through Armenia. So now, we've dealt with the threat. Nice one. However, this doesn't mean that everything is solved, because Maurice managed to defeat the Sassanid army near Callinicum, but it at least gives us some breathing space when Maurice is finally called to Constantinople to be made emperor. So good for him. Also, remember Maurice. He comes back into the story. He is very important 2 episodes from now.
Oh, heck. Okay, Maurice.
I mean, kind of next episode, but, next episode and the one after. But so eventually the war continues onwards with some back and forth, nothing too exciting, until 586, when Hormizd tried to broker a peace with the Romans in exchange for the usual tribute the Romans gave to protect the passes of the Caucasus. Also, the Romans would have to sign a piece of paper saying that they started it, so they should just accept to go back how things were. But Maurice refused the war again, and many atrocities were committed by all against the poor civilians who lived in the area.
Mm-hmm.
There was a brief moment of hope when a Roman army mutinied against the emperor due to pay cuts. So Hormizd tried to invade Roman territory and take advantage of this, but this only convinced the mutineers to return to fight when they saw their homes were being invaded. So, not ideal. The Romans aren't going to invade us, but we're not having success in the invasion. Slightly unpleasant. Also, at the same time, the Romans are having threats in the west, such as the Lombards in Italy and the Avars in the Balkans. And these Avars are just also steppe nomads who live in modern Hungary, who had been chased away by the Turks. So they're part of this whole conveyor belt of the steppe going on from east to west. And all this, the war continued very much like before until Hormizd himself got some bad news. Because in 589, the nomads north of the Caucasus, possibly the Khazars from which his mother came from, invaded at the same time as the Turks in the east. Possibly due to Roman encouragement, possibly because the Khazars were working with the Turks together. While other sources also claim that Arab raids had started out in the south, so basically every border is on fire right now, and Hormizd needs to deal with this.
Great, love that for us.
Damn. So, which border should you concentrate on first? The Khazars in the north, Turks in the east, Arabs in the south, or Romans in the west?
Are you serious?
Yes, we have all of them. You have plenty of choice.
Who seems easier to defeat?
Well, we've been sort of going toe-to-toe with the Romans. The Khazars are new, but they're relatively small. The Arabs are also relatively small. The Turks are kind of scary.
Oh god, I guess we have to take care of the Turks.
Yeah. That's what Hormizd's counselors say as well, because they tell him that they could deal with the Khazar and Arab armies on their own without the king. The Romans could be placated. You can negotiate with them. But the Turks are a terrifying force and they need all our attention.
If it isn't the consequences of our own actions.
Yes, exactly.
You know. Like, we saw this happen twice.
Yeah. I'm guessing Khosrow's just happy that he doesn't live to see this, because it's like, well, it solved my problems. I don't have to deal with this anymore. Goodbye.
It solved his problem, just like it solved Peros's problem.
I mean, Peros at least lived to regret his actions.
Yeah, I guess.
Khosrow was like, yep, everything's fine. Cool. Love it.
Yeah, don't have to worry about that. Oh, God. Okay, so what do we do? So what?
Yes. Time for war with the Turks.
Yeah.
According to Al-Tabari, the Turkic Khagan sent Hormizd a letter telling him to make sure all the bridges of the empire between the steppe and Roman lands were in good repair, because the Khagan was going to be crossing all of them soon enough.
Cool.
Nice. Good one.
Yep. I mean, I guess the Turks have like a prosperous empire at the moment and a powerful military.
I mean, they're the rulers of the steppe right now. They're doing great.
And we're just there.
Yeah.
So.
Doing what we can.
We were doing so well.
Yeah. Hormizd decided that this isn't the time for him to personally go and face the Turks. He needs to sort of stay at the center to keep a handle on everything and understand what's going on. So he decides to send the general of the East against the Turks. The leader of the Mihran family, who controlled some of these border regions. This man is called Bahram Chobin, and you'll want to remember him because he's important. Because Bahram Chobin was the head of one of these powerful noble families, and he was greatly experienced. He was known across the empire for his skills. He had probably fought as well in Khosrow's wars, so he's a veteran and experienced general. He knows these lands. He's ready for this. How do you think this goes, Sariel?
I am scared. So how bad is it?
Well, Bahram Chobin goes into battle.
I hate when you do that. You're just like, rubs one hand against the other. Well, let me tell you.
Yes. Well, Bahram Chobin marches against the Turkic army. We're not sure how it was composed. It was possibly made up of a lot of surviving Hephthalites who had been absorbed into the Turkic Empire. The ones that hadn't been all killed had accepted to become vassals of the Turks. And they were led by the Turkic Khagan at the head of all of them. the head of all the Turkic Empire, ready to march down and crush Iran. So Bahram Chobin marches into battle. There's a great clash on the border, great clash on the Oxus River. And Bahram takes his bow, pulls it nice and taut, takes precise aim, and shoots an arrow through the eye of the ruler of the Turks.
Oh my god! Really?
Yes.
That's so metal.
That's really
so
cool.
Intense. That's so intense. Oh my god. That's so cinematic. Let's
This
go.
was so impressive that it is regarded as one of the top 3 feats of archery in all of Persian history.
I mean, yeah. What are the other
Because,
2?
fair enough.
I know we've had some other cool battles, but like, yeah.
The other 2 are from the mythical past where people lived hundreds of years and were heroes of old.
Okay, yeah, because I was like, is this just this emperor who like shot at some goats and like took the horns off of a goat, like, you know.
Oh yeah, Bahram V. Yes, Bahram.
But that
IV.
also feels kind of like made up, but you know. That's
Yeah.
so intense.
It's that level of
How
trick
far
shot.
away? Like, how far away can you shoot an arrow and still go through a guy's skull?
Presumably very far away, because this
I
was...
mean, these bows are intense. Yeah.
This was supposedly on the other side of the battlefield, and they just saw him, was like, okay, I got this, guys.
Yeah, but
Don't
that's
worry.
why I'm like, was there like no wind? Like how?
Apparently, he calculated for the wind and adjusted for the Coriolis effect and had a whole thing.
Everything.
And, you know, since he's a commander of men and a general, he did this all from horseback, because he could. So, you know, good one, my dude. And yeah, after killing the head of the Turks, the army dissolved and they just all went home.
Oh my god. That
Oh
is
my
so
God,
that is
crap.
truly like chess. Like you take out the one person and the battle is over. Which
Yeah,
is
exactly.
ridiculous. Like nobody else is invested, nobody, you know.
Pretty much.
No other second in command is gonna, you know.
This is like hive mind mode where you just kill the boss and everybody just falls apart. It's like, okay, well, done. Solved the problem. We're alive. And, yeah. Bahram then had the head of the ruler of the Turks chopped off and sent to Hormizd with a nice letter saying, hey, I also
Wow.
captured the heir to the Turkic Empire.
Wow.
I'm going to expand the empire here in the next 9 months.
Oh my god.
Cool.
Like
That good?
I did not like this looked so dire. I never
Nope.
in a million years would have thought, what is happening?
Yeah. Bahram Chobin is just that good.
Can you shoot an arrow that far away? Like what is the
Listen, I'm not an archer, but I'm pretty sure. What is the maximum range of a bow? Let me just check that while we're here. Bow max range. About half a kilometer. So pretty good. If you have like a very cool bow and ideal conditions and everything. So presumably not, you know, horizon to horizon, but still pretty damn good.
So how far?
About half a kilometer.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
to catch a person's eye, half a kilometer.
No, that is still like incredibly impressive, but that gives enough range that I'm like, okay, if you can shoot an arrow like that far, then yeah, you technically could do this. It's still I wouldn't
It's a
expect
great
anybody
shot,
to be able
but
to,
also,
but
yeah.
you know, it is physically possible.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Bahram Chobin expanded the empire and got some new cities on the Silk Road. To be fair, Chinese sources tell us that the region wasn't doing great and a lot of ancient cities were poorly populated, but that could just be the fact that it was a place at war. That doesn't help things going too well, so there we are.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Bahram Chobin was so impressive that he had an epic poem written about his deeds, which later ended up in the Shahnameh.
I mean, it better.
Yes,
'Cause
because the dude deserves.
Why don't
it.
we have more media about this?
We need some. Yes, there's a Bahram Chobin Nameh, which is very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Although the fact that he does have the same name as Bahram Gur, the Bahram V, the one who did the trick shot with the horns and all that, there are a lot of myths that are shared because they're like, oh, you know that Bahram who was great with bows? It's like, yeah, this is a myth about him.
Mm.
So confusion occasionally, but That's all right. Bahram Chobin was then rewarded for his great feat by being given a special title, Darigbed, whose powers are sort of unclear, but we know from context that it was a really big deal. So he was greatly honored for having basically saved the empire from invasions on the east.
Mm-hmm.
And since he was so good last time, he was ordered to march towards the Caucasus to deal with the Romans and the Khazars, so that he could just destroy them as well. I mean, congratulations, my dude.
Yeah.
He was so scary that the Khazars, when they heard that he was coming, took what loot they had and just ran away past the mountains before he could get to them.
They booked it, yeah.
They were like,
just
nope,
full
nope,
on
we're not dealing
running
with this.
away.
We would like
We're
our
not
king
gonna
to
deal
keep
with
his
it.
eyes, please. Goodbye. And, well, what do you think is Hormizd's opinion of Bahram Chobin? If you were Hormizd, what would your thoughts be?
Okay, so we are the guy who, like, killed our brothers, right?
Yes.
Because...
Allegedly.
Yeah, because competition.
Yes.
So I would be like... There's two things, right? There's, on one hand, this person is capable and respected and could easily overthrow me because he is the head of an army that will, like, follow him.
Mm-hmm.
And has, like, this air of, like, legend about him. But also, the first thing I thought was, like, that is so good. We need to keep this person close to us, and we need to, like... That's awesome that this guy is so cool, and he works for us. So we should keep that going, and we should make him happy, and, like, you know?
So your strategy
sponsor
is
this guy.
give him whatever he wants. This is going great. Let's just...
well, like, give him
going.
reasons not to rebel, you know?
Sure.
Like, give him reasons not to actually try to take the throne, but, like, make it better for him to stay where he is and, like, to do what, like, conquer whatever he wants to do for the empire and not, like, for himself.
Yeah, right.
Now the question is, can we do that?
Well,
because if
that
not,
is,
then we'll have to kill him. But that would be...
Yeah.
because, like, do you have a hero of the empire and then, like, the king just executes him? Like, what?
That's not a good look. You are correct, yes. But Hormizd, as we've seen, he's angered a lot of nobles. He's sort of broken this social contract with the nobility that is saying... The nobles are looking around and looking at Bahram Chobin and saying, well, why isn't he king? They're whispering in his ear and saying, hey, you know what? If you wanted to, we'd support you, my dude. Just give us back our privileges and hey.
Yeah, which that is the
happen.
deal, right? Is make the nobles parasites again.
Yeah, exactly. But the nobles have a lot of power still. You know, they still haven't been entirely removed. And Bahram Chobin is himself a noble. He is the head of a noble family.
God, does he want to be king? Like, does he want that job?
Well, it's
because he
unclear.
Seems like a smart and reasonable dude. So I don't, you know.
According to the Shahnameh, Bahram had become overly ambitious and had begun to keep for himself a lot of loot that was destined for the royal treasury. That's also several other sources agree on this.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, probably.
So, that's making Hormizd suspicious, where it's like, okay, but if he's keeping all this money, what else isn't he telling me? What does he need all this money for? Is he raising an army? What's going on? So Hormizd is unhappy enough that when Bahram loses a small battle with the Romans, a minor battle on the border, Hormizd says, well, you're clearly not capable enough. You're fired. That's it. Go home, back to your lands. Somebody else is going to take control of the Roman war.
Yep.
And, well, words are had. Words are had. Because Hormizd is unhappy that Bahram had been taking all this extra loot. So he sent him some objects and a letter saying that these gifts were appropriate to the way you're acting, Bahram. And the gifts were a spindle with some raw cotton and an outfit made of a purple blouse, a woman's red hat, and female yellow pants. So he's basically saying, you're just like a big girl. I like the colors, though. That sounds like a nice outfit, but, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
This also came with a letter saying, You are a worthless, useless wretch. You enjoy
Wow.
humiliating your superiors, but I shall bring you down from the throne you've placed yourself on, and I shall not consider you a man from now on.
Damn. The good old you are a woman and therefore, like,
Therefore not
bad.
worth.
Yeah.
At that point, Bahram put on these women's clothes and presented himself before his officers and said, "This is the gift the king has sent me. What do you think is the significance of this, and how should I answer our country's king?"
Okay.
The officers then replied that, "If this is what the king thinks of you, then his courtiers are dogs, and you should absolutely rebel."
That's fair. I don't know why the king decided that this was the way to go.
This
You
was
know?
a terrible decision. This is very bad.
Like, if you're going to get rid of him, then get rid of him. Don't, like, try to humiliate him and give him more reasons to want to rebel.
Exactly. Like, just get rid of him quietly and say, "Here, have this lush retirement somewhere else. It'll
Yeah.
be fine. You'll have a great parade. You can have a great title. Just
Yeah.
retire."
Give him whatever he wants, right? And, like, and if he doesn't accept, then, like, you get rid of him, but, like,
Yeah.
swiftly and discreetly.
Yeah, no, this is not the way to do
This
it.
is so stupid. Like, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this wasn't even one of my options, but, like, of course it wasn't one of my
Of
options.
course not. Yeah.
Like-
fair. Yeah. Yeah. Fair.
Okay, so we're Team Bahram now.
Pretty much.
Because clearly.
Although we do have that Bahram at this point was reluctant to rebel. He thought, "Oh, well, should I do this? Should I rebel against the king?" But we are told that he shot back at Hormizd, calling him Khosrow's daughter. So,
Yeah.
bunch of misogyny both ways. Fun, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. Listen, we can't get around it.
Yeah.
Misogyny was strong. And I also don't love that, like, he is corrupt. Like, he is keeping a bunch of money for himself that should go to the treasury. In the sense of, like, I don't know if then the king would use it for the right things, but, like, that it has to go to the kingdom so that then, like, things can be improved. Like, that is the whole thing.
Yeah.
And if you're just embezzling for yourself, then, yeah, that's not very noble of you.
Yeah. There is one author, this Theophylacte Simocatte I mentioned earlier, this Roman author, who instead says that actually Hormizd didn't send this letter with the insults and the dress and all that. That was actually Bahram planning it all along. Bahram said, "Oh, look at this letter I received from Hormizd.
Just
How
needed a
dare
reason.
he? Damn,
Oh
I
my
have to
God.
make myself king of kings now." So, this is the only source that mentions this, but it would be interesting. I mean, it is definitely a way to
Yeah.
convince his soldiers to join him. Because, you couldn't
It's
just march on the
also,
capital
I
and
guess-
say whatever, but...
It depends what image you want to give of Bahram, if he was thinking about this all along or not, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have more information later so you can make up your mind, but we can see if he was that ambitious and decided to just upend 1,000 years, not 1,000 years, but, 500 years
1,000 years!
of Sassanid
1,000
monarchy.
million
Yeah.
years! Sorry, I'm just like...
But yes. So, at last, Bahram Chobin rebels and declares himself king of kings, which is unprecedented because he's from a Parthian family that's unrelated to the Sassanid royal line. This has never happened before.
Yeah.
And actually, what Bahram says is that he is more legitimate than the Sassanids because he's descended from the old Parthian dynasty, who was replaced by the Sassanids. So since he is from an older dynasty, he has more right to rule. So he is showing this as a restoration rather than something new, which, saying you're going back to the good old days is often a good strategy for politics.
Yeah. People keep doing that.
But just to point out how unheard of this is, remember that a couple centuries ago, the nobles decided that a fetus was a more legitimate king than one of them. They just made
Right.
Shapur II king before he was even born.
True.
But now Bahram is just trying to overthrow the son of the greatest king the empire has had in a long time, and it's working. Like, people are following him. He's not just some guy, and we're forgetting about it. It actually seems to work.
That's wild. What changed?
Well, the fact is that Khosrow and Hormizd and Kavad are sort of depreciating the value of the nobles.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
beforehand,
So they are fed up.
they had
by
their
now.
rights. Now they're saying, well, we have nothing left to lose. If we're going to be just bureaucrats now, we might as well just risk it all and see what happens. This is also the negative side of Khosrow's reforms from last time, because now there's a royal army separate from that of the nobles, and the royal army owes its direct loyalty to the general. And that's Bahram. He won. He won a bunch of battles. He was filled with glory.
we've
He
seen this
saved the empire
happen
multiple times.
time and time again in different empires. If you give someone a big army that is loyal to the general and not to like an emperor or a king, well, guess what? You have one person with a huge army that can oppose you.
So this is a problem. This is what the Romans learned about in the 3rd century, that if you have a strong enough person in charge of an army, they'll just make themselves king if they win and just go home. So yeah, Hormizd realizes, oh no, oh wait, this is so much worse than it was before.
You don't say.
And he tries to send a Mesopotamian army against the rebels, but their general was killed, supposedly death by elephant.
Oof.
And the army then, generalless, decide to just join Bahram and make him more powerful.
Yeah, God, oh my God, why did we decide to do this? Why?
We were worried he would rebel, so we made him rebel.
Yeah, helping who? Like this? Oh my God.
The secret is always sends assassins before letters.
Yeah. I'm honestly kind of inclined to maybe believe that Roman historian who's like, actually, this letter didn't have a bunch of insults, just,
It is such a dumb decision that it's just like,
yeah, because,
what were you thinking? How?
What we've been doing so far is not that, like, Hormizd is, like, I don't know if he's brilliant or as brilliant as his father.
He seems to be trying to follow him. But,
he is painted a bit, like, brutal or whatever, but, like, he seems to be reasonable most of the time, and, like, to make good decisions, or like decisions that like will benefit the empire. So this is just so out of left field. Like, what?
It does sort of make sense that he would want to limit Bahram, because he is, the main thing that we know about his policy is that he's trying to stop the nobles. He's trying to restrict them. But probably he just isn't as good as his father at handling the nobles. So maybe he might just be pushing a bit too far, and that just broke Bahram and decided, okay, screw this. I'm marching on Ctesiphon.
Yeah.
And in the words of Bahram Chobin through the Shahnameh, once I have established my authority over the country, I shall tear the Sassanids up by the roots. God did not create the earth for them, and it's time they forfeited his favor. At the same time, the royal army that was fighting the Romans in Syria was defeated, and the Romans begin invading Armenia. So, great, loving this. Brilliant. And to quote the Shahnameh, now the king regretted the spindle case, the raw cotton, and the unworthy clothes.
You don't say!
No.
This episode is just such a... Oh.
Yeah.
I'm losing my mind.
We'll see how it ends.
Just slowly unraveling.
Hormizd then tried to negotiate with Bahram. But Bahram said, bit late, mate. This isn't gonna work.
Yep.
I'm already marching on the capital with all the army. You're not going to end well in this story. And we're told that Hormizd found no peace, he could neither eat nor sleep, and his eyes were always filled with tears.
Yeah.
And from Theophylact Simacata, the Roman guy, the king raged and glared furiously, bellowing and gnashing his teeth. Because this is not a good situation. The man is entirely f***ed. There's no outcome, which is good for him here. He needs to hope for a miracle. And Serial, well...
Don't tell me.
We'll find out if the miracle happens, won't we?
I mean, that would be undeserved at this point. Like, what? Like, we were doing so well. Hormizd, we were doing so well. And now, then you did something really stupid.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Because Hormizd has a son called Khosrow. Khosrow II, in fact.
Oh, heck, okay. So some miracle does happen.
And Khosrow was made king of Caucasian Albania. So he was behind Bahram Choban.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, Khosrow, this young Khosrow, was the nephew of two disgruntled nobles from the Ispabudan family, Bestam and Bendoy, who you want to remember for the future.
Okay.
And they all agreed together, they all had a conversation, and they agreed that Hormizd had to go. That's...
He dug a hole so deep, you just cover it with earth.
He tried, yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. The Shahnameh also mentions that Bahram Choban minted coins in Khosrow's name to try and sow discord between father and son. So he was trying to say, oh, no, your son's rebelling, don't trust him. So Khosrow decided to stay at his seat in Albania, probably in case things went wrong and he needed a speedy getaway. And he sent a couple of nobles to the capital to take control of the capital from Hormizd. I was very happy that we get a scene from Theophylact again, because two nobles, one of which is Bendoy, was imprisoned by Hormizd. They walk up to Hormizd sitting on his throne in front of the whole court. Hormizd then asked the noble who was a prisoner, "How did you get out of prison? What is the meaning of this? What are you doing? I'm your king."
Yeah.
And well then, Bendoy publicly insulted Hormizd and was soon joined by the rest of the court. Bendoy then took the king by his hand, stripped him of his diadem, and handed him over to the palace guards.
Wow, this is going so well.
Yes. It's like, well, this is not the job I signed up for.
Yes.
I was hoping for better things.
Joy.
No. Theophylact then has Hormizd request and make a speech after his imprisonment, but I don't honestly believe this because it sounds like poor coup etiquette to allow him to try and get popular support. So
yeah, like why
you
would you
probably
ever...
just want to execute him and say,
yeah,
no speeches, no appealing to everyone's emotion, you just die. That's it.
Yep.
But anyway, in this case, we're told that he begged the court to reinstate him because they were faced with civil and external war, and it was foolish to replace him now and invite more disaster.
That is true.
So what are you doing? This is not the time.
But you have your best general, like, focused on replacing you instead of on, like, saving the empire. So, like, can we please not do this now?
Yeah. But yeah, Bendoy just replies that all of Hormizd's achievements, everything he'd ever done that worked, was due to Bahram. And now Bahram is attacking us. And the war with Rome was just an embarrassing tie. So, what achievements, Hormizd? What achievements? What do you have to offer to us? So Hormizd was then deposed in favor of Khosrow on the 6th of February 590, and later blinded.
In favor of Khosrow, though, which is so funny. So
Exactly.
we're not going with Bahram at all.
Nope, we're still trying to resist Bahram.
Like, oh my god.
That is a choice. And yeah, to quote the Shahnameh once again, they put hot irons into his eyes, and the bright lamps of his life turned dark.
That's such a horrible way to do it.
Yeah, not good. It's also not saving his life because shortly after he was deposed, Hormizd was executed by being beaten to death, either by order of his son, or with Khosrow pretending he didn't see what happened, just, oh, the succession was so chaotic, it just happened, it was nobody's fault.
Oh my god.
Who knows?
That is so... That is so intense.
Yeah. This might have also been done when Bahram Choban was getting close to the capital, and Khosrow or his advisors wanted to avoid the risk of an internal coup. Since they weren't able to handle the Bahram situation, that somebody would put Hormizd back on the throne, there would be a whole mess. But
I mean, I'd be more worried about Bahram, not about Hormizd, but, you know.
But yeah, that is the end of Hormizd's episode. Everything went great this
God.
time.
I am, like, my brain.
Cyril, who do you think the next episode is?
Is it? I mean, technically, Khosrow is now. Wait. Yes. Sorry. Names. I'm like,
Yes,
what?
it's
Where are we
fine.
talking about?
Yes, Khosrow
Khosrow is
II.
now king, so it should be him. And I think it will last 2 seconds, and then Bahram will take over. This is my premonition. It's gonna be a short episode.
Yes, for very mild spoilers, Khosrow II rules for a long weekend, and then Bahram marches on the capital.
Yeah, that
and
is
becomes king
that
of
is
kings.
about what I expected. Like, this
So,
is so ridiculous.
The
Why
next
would you do it
episode
this
is
way?
going to be Bahram Chobin, where we get to learn a lot more details about his life, and we get our first non-Sassanid for like 25 episodes. So that'll be exciting. We get to see what Bahram Chobin's going to be like. And Khosrow II just gets a number, and I guess he's there as well.
So we're not doing an episode on him at all. Or are we? Because, like, technically, we should have an episode for him.
We'll have to find out.
We had one for Xerxes
Xerxes II as well.
Yeah.
I will mention he does get a chance to come back at some point, so there will be an episode on him eventually.
So he doesn't die. Okay, interesting.
No. Well, Khosrow survives. Can you guess what he does?
Go to the Romans? Or
correct, Serial, correct. So we'll see how that goes.
I might not know much about history, but I know our tropes already.
Yes.
I know these characters now.
Yep. He'll be going to the Romans. We'll see how well that ends for everyone. But hey, stuff. So, thoughts on Hormizd, Serial?
Right now I'm thinking that it would be very interesting to make a show where you take all of the Persian Empire, for example, that we've covered, like every king, and you make that the arc of one character.
Well, Serial.
Like 1 or 2 characters. So instead of like each emperor being a different person and like following each emperor, you just summarize all of it, or like your favorite parts, into one long reign.
Well, Serial, that is exactly what we will be doing after Yazdegerd III.
Well, yeah,
I have written up a choose-your-own-adventure
nice.
for you to go through
amazing.
and see if you could rule. You're going to be basically every king at the same time.
I am too nice. I'll be killed immediately.
You'll see.
By the nobles.
We'll find out.
I'm calling it.
I mean, yeah, if anybody's going to kill you, it's probably be the nobles.
Yeah.
But alright, are you ready to rate Hormizd, Serial, and see how well he does compared to his father, the glorious Khosrow?
Let's do it.
Very well. Our first category is final moments. How interesting was his death? Being overthrown, blinded, and then beaten to death either on the orders of his son or with his son closing an eye. I'd say that's pretty good drama. I'm here for it.
Yeah, no, that's really intense. Especially the fact that he gets blinded, like tortured, and then still killed in also a horrible way. Like, oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. He may have made some dumb decisions, but, you know.
It changed nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just made things worse for him.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm thinking... I like the fact that it's his son who's directly or indirectly doing it to him.
Yeah.
I like the fact that he is blinded beforehand. That's very dramatic. And beaten to death. Harsh.
Yep.
My instinctual number is a 7. What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna go for, actually. So, perfect. Yeah.
Lovely. So we agree at a start. So
we don't tend to disagree much.
Yeah, we don't have massive disagreements. So with a 7 and a 7, he gets a 7 out of 10 for final moments. Our next category is battle hardness. How good was he at war and fighting? Well, so on the bright side, okay, the problem here is that as Bendoy tells him, as he is being overthrown, all his achievements are thanks to Bahram.
Yep, I was gonna say, like, at least he knew when to delegate.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing where it's like, I guess it was done in his name, but then Bahram rebels.
Yeah.
I feel like we should give him the necessary respect for Bahram's achievements. At least I think we're going to have to also give these points to Bahram when it's his turn, because he deserves it. He gets an epic poem written about himself. Of course. Yes, my dude. But I think Hormizd also deserves these points. So what did he do? He had a war with Rome, which was, again, a stalemate. he sort of inherited a positive situation from Khosrow and then kept it still. He tried to win some things, but didn't achieve anything great. The Romans didn't make any great victories, so it was all iffy.
Yeah.
And then, well, in the south, the Arabs raided a bit. We mostly just held them off. In the east, again, Bahram killed the Khagan of the Turks. And then just made them run away and took a bunch of extra land. That's amazing. That's brilliant. Wow. He also scared the Khazars so much that they just, left our lands without waiting for a fight. And they just went home. So, brilliant as well.
Yeah.
The bad part is that Hormizd sends an army to fight Bahram Choban. Their general is killed and they join him. And then he loses one last battle against the Romans in Syria while all this is happening. So, meh.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? Because the Turks thing is very big. But everything else is not.
Yeah,
No.
I'm not thinking much.
Also, he personally doesn't seem to fight, or at least.
Yeah.
Or rather, he may have fought under his father in the original war against the Hephthalites back 20 years ago. So
He started so
maybe?
promising.
He started reasonably. I think the man was trying his best. But, So yeah, battle hardness, I think I'm thinking of 4.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, he
Because
goes
it's not
toe-to-toe with the
terrible,
Romans,
Like, he
but
did
yeah.
some stuff, but also,
Yeah, I think it's reasonably good, but Bahram Choban is definitely getting a higher grade, at least for this section. We'll see what happens to him in later life. But
Of course, yeah.
okay, so I'm giving it a 4. You matching?
Yep.
Okay, so with a 4 and a 4, we get an 8 out of 20 for Battle Hard. Our next category is scheminess. How good was he at plots and manipulations?
Yeah. Bad. Actually bad at it.
He manages to... What does he do? He
manages to get himself deposed. No.
Yeah, I mean, he just realizes he's deposed when one of his prisoners shows up and says, hey, no, guards, seize the king. It's like, what? What's happening? What's going on? What do you mean?
I guess he was doing his thing, taking the noble's power away, but he wasn't doing that sneakily.
But he didn't do it well. If he'd done his, maybe Khosrow was doing it sneakily and just flattering people in the correct amount and taking things when they don't notice and all that. But Hormizd is just trying too hard and just failing and falling flat on his face. It's just...
Nah.
Is there anything schemy he's done at all?
Anything with the Romans? Nothing happened, right?
He tries to make a treaty with the Romans, but it doesn't work. He kills his brothers, supposedly, but again, that's not
but is that
schemy?
schemy? That's just straight up, That's just murder.
Yeah. I can't think of... What else did he do? Tries to kill the nobles, but again, murder. That's just not... That isn't a sneaky way to do it. He's just doing it, sadly. Yeah. I think a 0 is all we can really give him.
Yeah. Good. Because I agree.
Fair enough. So, with a 0 and a 0, he gets a 0 out of 20 for scheminess.
Yep.
Our next category is shock factor. How shocking was this man? You know
Very
what? I think
actually.
he can gain stuff here. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, in order of his life, first of all, it is kind of shocking that he is half nomadic. He is either half Khazar or half Turk.
Yes.
And people did point that out about him and were about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We can't have nice things.
Again, we have different sources. Some of them call him a massive tyrant, that he killed so many people. He killed 13,000 nobles, and he killed all the clergy because he didn't want to persecute Christians.
We have that many nobles? Oh my god.
I don't
Kill
believe
more.
we have that many nobles. That sounds like an exaggeration.
Kill more of them.
Come on. There's no way. So, he is very harsh on the nobles. That's certainly shocking. That's certainly harsh.
But his father was also.
Exactly. But, it's not what you'd expect in general.
Maybe a half a point.
He kills all his brothers.
Yeah.
Pretty harsh.
We've seen it before, but that is very intense.
Yeah. Then it depends what you want to believe with Bahram Choban.
Yeah.
He either massively insults his best general in charge of the largest army and
But
says,
the
what
other
are you
option
gonna
is
do,
also
you big
he
girl?
fails
What are you
to
doing?
prevent him from revolting.
Oh, absolutely. And
Which,
not only does he fail to prevent him from revolting, this is the first time in 250 years of Sassanid rule.
250
Yes.
years.
Oh, not even in like 300 years of Sassanid rule. 350 years of Sassanid rule that a noble is saying, I'm going to be king now. This has never happened before. This is all Hormizd. I don't know if you'd call it all Hormizd's fault, but he is
but
the
he
one
certainly
it's falling
helped.
on. Yeah.
Like,
you could argue that this is mostly Kavad's fault for messing things up, and Khosrow made it worse, and Hormizd just made it over the top.
Yeah. Hormizd, like, actually...
Hormizd was just unlucky enough that he was the guy in charge when everything overflowed. But it is pretty harsh. And... it's just...
no, that gets some points from me. But I think I'll go to, like, a 5, maybe? Because I don't really... Like, and most of my points are because of how he handled the Bahram situation. Like, I'm still not over how stupid...
Yeah, absolutely.
And how ridiculous that decision is. Like, truly.
No, yeah. I'm thinking a 7, because I'm rating a lot higher the fact that he is very harsh against the nobles, his heritage. I think all those combined are definitely worth a couple extra points, and then the Bahram thing is massive. So I'm going to go with a 7. I think he deserves a reasonably high score here.
Heck.
You can stick with a 5 if you like, if you think he didn't earn that much.
Yeah, no, I am going to go for a 5, because I don't see more.
Mm-hmm.
But yes.
Okay, fair. So with a 7 and a 5, we got a 12 out of 20 for shock factor. Our next category is Aaron's shine. How good was he for the Empire in general and Iran in particular? Well, see, until like 6 months before the end, things were going reasonably well. You know, like, so let's pretend Bahram doesn't rebel and everything is fine. In that situation, he has continued the reforms of his father. He's kept everything up. He is trying to reduce the power of the nobles. He's kept the Roman war stable. Sure, it isn't ending in glory, but it's fine. He is being attacked on all fronts, and he's managed to win the Eastern War. The Khazars have run away. The Arabs are stopping their raids. We only have to deal with the Roman war, and everything is fine. Mostly. The nobles are kind of angry. That's unpleasant, but
yeah,
hey,
but like with how we started the episode, rebel? Which was like, oh, every border is being attacked at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, okay, so we're
dealt with.
Good.
Then the last 6 months are, oh god, Bahram is rebelling. All the army is gone. The dynasty is on fire. The Romans have defeated us and are marching into Armenia. Our son has overthrown us and messed up the line of succession.
Yeah.
And Bahram is at the gates. That's not a good situation to leave the empire.
Everything is bad.
That was coming off Khosrow's golden age.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh god, everything's on fire. How do you want to rate that? What do you consider for that? Because he was doing a reasonably good job until almost the end, and then he just falls on his face at the finish line.
So how bad is it for the Empire? Like, how crumbly are we because of this? In how much danger are we?
So, it's bad for multiple reasons.
I mean, like, I am aware that it's bad, but like, what is the impact actually for...
So the fact is that the War of the Romans is going poorly. We don't know how bad it could go. It depends what Bahram does once he takes the throne.
Mm-hmm.
But the nobles are definitely emboldened again. We were slowly stamping down on them, and now one of them is king. So what's that going to do to the structure of the empire? Who knows?
Yay.
And then we've invited civil war to the empire. You know, Hormizd has failed quick enough that we're not ravaging the country. You know, Bahram is just marching on the capital. He isn't, you know, having to fight meter by meter to get there. But is that a merit to lose quickly enough that you don't damage your empire? And to be fair, externally, we only have the war against the Romans, and, well, you could say that Bahram's in charge now, so he knows how to deal with them.
Yeah. I guess it's not as bad as it could be.
Like, we've been in worse situations.
Yes.
It's terrible for the dynasty. For the empire, not so much.
Yeah.
Like, if Bahram were just another Sassanid, if he were just like another Narseh from back in the day, then, it's a very competent, skilled general coming to take the throne. That's not a bad sign. But we'll have to see what he does with it.
Yep.
So,
this does not make me hopeful.
Yeah, I think my reasoning is going to have to be, okay, start with a 5. That's keeping everything stable from his father. He is improving things compared to the nobles, so that's a 6. He is keeping the Romans steady, so that's a 7. He's defeated the Turks, so that's an 8. Then remove 2 points for the rebellion. Is a 6 too good for him?
No.
Honestly, I think a 6 is
I think
fair.
that tracks. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, despite the absolute dumpster fire that's going on at the end, the Empire's actually doing fine. Like, if you're Farmer Bob from Middle Mesopotamia,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's fine.
Yeah.
Could be worse. So, surprisingly, he gets as much as Bahram V, which, good for him, I guess.
Damn.
So, yeah, with a 6 and a 6, he gets a 12 out of 20 for Aaron Shine. Our next category is Face of Faces. What do you think this man looked like? And let me send you his crown.
Well, let me make a doodle.
Okay, so Serial has finished their drawing. Let me pick it up and I'll describe it to you all.
You can tell I haven't eaten enough today because even my handwriting is shaky.
Like, okay, so we have a very sad situation.
Well, what do you want? Like, have we listened to the same episode?
So fine. Fair, yeah, absolutely. So what we have here is our boy, Hormizd, kneeling. He has the usual tunic, but he is crownless. His face is hidden behind his sleeves, and he is raising his hands above, begging for mercy as he kneels and says, "Please, mercy, I didn't mean it. I didn't think you'd depose me. I don't know what the plan was, to be honest."
Yep.
So, absolutely Hormizd's vibe. So, thank you, Serial.
You're welcome.
If anybody wants to see this, you can go to our episode notes in the description, or on our Discord if you're a patron, or go to Serial's portrait gallery on our website. Now let me show Serial what he actually looked like, and we are now, unfortunately, in a sad period because we're close enough to the event, capital T, capital E,
Yeah.
that things are getting melted down. So if we didn't have much for Khosrow I, and he was him, we don't have very much for Hormizd. We just have a coin, which is very stylized by this point. So here you go.
Yeah. That's cute. I like that it has like a circular frame and then some stuff outside of the frame as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's the coin with a profile portrait and some writing.
Yeah, he has some really bulging eyes there. It's just like massive,
I wonder if that was like
eyes.
a thing.
Who knows? But yeah, sad the poor man had to be blinded. But the crown's nice. That's pretty good, I guess. It's fine.
I don't know.
You can't tell too much from it. I do like his mustache. I think the mustache works quite well in his beard.
Yes, I like the frame of the overall
it's quite nice
coin. I will go for a 2. I don't know. It's a bit unique, so it's not
agree.
a 1, but
Yeah, it's just a coin. It's not an especially good coin, so yeah, I think a 2 is perfectly fair. So with a 2 and a 2, we get a 1 out of 5 for Face of Faces. Our next category is lengthiness. How long do you think this man reigned?
I'd say the last 6 months was when everything went terribly.
Yes.
But until then, he did some stuff. So I'm gonna say 10 years, maybe? It feels long. I don't know.
Yeah, it is very close. That was 11 years.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so...
Yeah. So he basically ruled from 579 all the way to 590 when he was horribly overthrown for a total of 11 years. So 11 divided by 10 is 1.1 out of 5 for lengthiness. And that brings us to the final score, which is a grand total of 41.1 out of 100, which puts him relatively high up between Yazdegerd I and Antiochus I. So he's essentially at the lower end of the part where most people are Shahanshahs. That leads us to our final question, which is to say, is he following in his father's footsteps enough? Is he reasonable enough? Is he horribly overthrown enough to be a Shahanshah?
Good point.
Or is he just a Shahanna?
No.
What do you think?
I mean, it's been an interesting episode, but like, I don't,
I think it's sort of like Astyages at the beginning, where it's like the interesting bits are Bahram doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Absolutely.
You're reacting to someone cooler than you.
I mean, I was
sorry,
never
Hormizd.
considering giving it to him, but like,
Yeah, it's sad. We can see if Bahram gets it next time, He's been impressive so far, so let's see if the story ends with a bang or with a whimper.
Oh boy.
But yeah, I'm sorry, Hormizd. You are Shahanna. You can go off into the desert and meet Jamasp. You can commiserate over both being probably blinded, because that's not fun. And also Balash, who was the previous guy who was also probably blinded.
Yep.
Not a fun time for Shahannaz here, but yeah, tough. So yeah, that is the end of our episode. Thank you for listening. We hope you had a lovely time with us, and we hope you'll join us next time for Bahram Chobin, Bahram the Sixth,
Hooray.
the first ruler of the Mihran family, where we'll see how he does. Serial, quick prediction. You expect he'll do well, terribly, or eh?
I'm not sure. I think he will do well. Or at least, like, he will consolidate his reign.
Right.
Because we know that Hormizd's son just doesn't, is not going to reign right now. So clearly... I'm curious to see how it's going to go with the nobles. Because there's also these other nobles related to Khosrow the second,
Babadan family,
who will come back, and so I'm like, okay, so what,
Yeah, this is the first time the nobles have had to deal with one of them becoming king, so we need to see how they'll take it.
I don't know, and I mean, hopefully they'll get their power back because that's what they want, and then that's that. But I don't know. I feel like maybe they will fight among themselves, and Bahram won't be able to rule really well. I guess we'll see.
Well, yeah.
Is he an Alexander sort of person? Good militarily, but at politics.
I mean, yeah, we haven't seen him rule yet. We've seen him successfully engineer a coup, so that's good for him. But that does not a ruler make necessarily.
No.
Yeah. Yes. What comes next, and so on. Very well. So join us next time to find out what that's like. In the meantime, if you'd like to support us, there are many ways to do that. You can join us on Patreon, where you can get access to a bunch of extra episodes. We released an episode on Pompey the Great, and before the new year, you'll get an episode on Odenathus. And on the day this comes out, we are still voting for what the next miniseries is going to be.
So hurry up.
If you want to, that is the last day you can do this. Just so you know, we're talking about some Sassanids of the Shahnameh, the last kings that could have restored the Seleucid Empire, and the last king of the Parthian Empire, and also we might have a special on Khosrow's scholars, so all the people at the Academy of Gundashapur, and what do they do, what's their deal, join, make your voice heard. That could be cool.
Get your vote in there.
And you get access to, over a year of backup episodes, so that's nice. If you need something to do during your commute in the holidays, here you go. Instead, if you'd rather not support us monetarily, that's fine, but we appreciate if you could give us a review on your podcast app of choice so other people know that we exist and give us a go. It's quite nice. Suggest your favorite episode people should start from. That's always a good thing people look for in reviews, so if you don't know what to write, say, I like this podcast, you should start from this episode, it's good. But yeah, in that case, without any further ado, we hope you have a lovely week, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Yeah. Enjoy your holidays. I think we still have some.
We still have ones, probably. We'll see.
Leave, but you know.
Enjoy them in general. It's nice.
Bye.